Hello, my friends. Today we're talking about building better characters. And as much as I harp on having a solid story on this channel, a story is about someone who wants something badly, is having trouble getting it, and they get it or they don't, which means we have to start with someone, a character. Character is everything. Characters are why the audience cares. They hope for the best and fear the worst for the characters. The audience connects with the characters. A story exists because of the characters. And conflict, that thing that makes the story go, that's a result of characters. So if your characters are bad, you're in serious trouble. How do you go about making your characters better? Well, if you believe some of the gurus out there, they'll make you think that what you really need to do is have an adequate backstory for your character, that you need to know what motivates them to make any decision that they might make, that you need to know where they grew up, or what their childhood was like, or what they did in school, if they went to school, what their family and extended family situation is like, who they dated and why, did they break up, what happened, their financial situation, their moral and ethical beliefs, and so on and so on and so on. And that all is a bunch of hogwash. You don't have to know all that. What you need to know about your characters are only the things that impact the story that you're trying to tell. So if their family history impacts the story you're trying to tell, then yeah, you gotta know it. If not, you don't. Another way to make characters better, which does have some merit, is to know and understand the theme of your story and how your main character exemplifies or amplifies or perhaps defies that theme. And then you build characters around them that reflect the theme from different perspectives. And this one can work to an extent, but you have to be aware that you're doing it, or you're gonna risk setting up a bunch of characters that feel a bit preachy and thematically on the nose, which is just not good. They might even come across as caricatures and not characters. And when you create characters this way, if you don't pay attention, what happens is you end up making the characters too flat and two-dimensional because you're focused on just creating them as a foil for your main character. Still though, this one does have some merit, but one of the bigger drawbacks is you have to take so much time figuring out your characters that you aren't really working on the story or the screenplay. So how can you make characters better and do it in a more efficient way? If you've watched this channel at all, you know I like efficient ways. I'm not into wasting my time. I want to find an efficient way to do things when it comes to screenwriting. Screenwriting takes a long time. I want to find efficient ways. And one of the ways to create better characters in an efficient way is using character archetypes. Now, before you throw your hands up, let me explain what archetypes aren't, what they should be, and why they can be extremely helpful to building characters. So what they aren't, or at least what they're not supposed to be, are cliches or caricatures. Now, often when people hear the word archetype, they think the character is just a cookie cutter version of some idealized character, but that's not true. Bad archetypes, yeah, they're cookie cutter, but good archetypes, they take most of the common traits of an archetype, alter a few of them, and create a unique character. And not all main characters have to be the hero archetype. I'm going to mention the other archetypes here in a moment. And this is what most people expect. They expect the main character to be the hero archetype. So if they expect it, don't give it to them. This helps ensure your archetypal characters aren't caricatures or cliches or stereotypes. Now, what your characters should be then are slightly different modifications of common archetypes. In fact, each character, like every person, you and me included, is never solidly one archetype. Characters are people. They're predominantly one specific archetype, but they might have a few parts of other archetypes. And this is why archetypes are helpful and useful, because they help the audience more quickly connect with your characters. As an audience, we understand archetypal characters quickly because we as people understand the core traits of archetypes. So in using an archetype, you are reducing the barrier for the audience to participate in the story, allowing them to more quickly relate with a character and become invested in your story. Now, the word archetype comes from two Greek words meaning origin and pattern. So the meaning is original model. In other words, archetypes represent common, universal patterns in people that transcend geography and culture because they're innate to the human condition. So if you see someone in just your everyday life who has the characteristics of honor and courage and loyalty, we generally think of those traits as good traits, and they're associated with the hero archetype. And as soon as we see a character on screen exemplify those traits, we're all like, oh, I know who they are, I got them. In the same way, if you see someone who bends constantly or breaks rules all the time, they're always looking for an angle, they're always ready to upset the status quo, okay, that's an outlaw archetype. And we know who they are immediately. So archetypes are helpful not only for your audience, because it helps them understand who the characters are, but archetypes can also be extremely helpful to you. I mean, most screen stories have one protagonist and about 4 or 5 supporting characters. And depending on which archetypes you are looking at, there's a couple of different models. We're going to run through them here in a second. But you will have anywhere between 4 archetypes to 12 archetypes, which is pretty much enough to cover your core characters, your protagonist and a few supporting characters. And this helps you more quickly differentiate between them, giving each of your core characters different goals, traits, strengths, weaknesses, and then all you have to do is just slightly modify them a little bit so the traits of each character feel new and fresh. But you can start with the archetypes and it gives you a good, solid place to start, and then you just got to modify to suit the story that you're trying to tell. And this is a key point in using archetypes. You start with an archetype, but you don't end with an archetype. The end result you create has to be a slightly modified. It's got to be a little different. And if you start and end with the archetype, so you're ending with the archetype, you don't change anything, okay, that's not going to go well for you. And I know that by saying, hey, you should just use archetypes to create characters, I kind of sound a little heretical because you aren't supposed to use shortcuts when writing a story. That's a bunch of rubbish. Time is the most expensive commodity there is. And if I can find a way to save some time, I'm going to do it, because once that time is spent, you can't get it back. But you're supposed to create characters organically, you say, or make them feel more real. Okay, attention, in case you missed it earlier, archetypes are reflections of real people in real life. Remember, original model. You are an archetype. I am an archetype. Everyone in your life is an archetype. You've probably heard the saying, everyone is the hero archetype of their own story. So you might be thinking that you are the hero archetype because you're the hero of your own story. And you probably are in your own story, but that's not who you are in my story. And if I'm the hero of my story, who are you in my story? Or better yet, who am I in your story? Am I the mentor, the ally, the trickster, the shapeshifter? I mean, if I'm the mentor or the ally, perhaps because you've watched other videos on this channel, you know I'm not going to blow smoke in your general direction, and that I genuinely want to help transform you into a screenwriter who tells stories that matter. If that's who I am to you, and you want my help to transform yourself, there are links below you should check out, especially the Screenplay Navigator. If you've written a couple of scripts and you're done at playing, like you're done playing at being a screenwriter and you're ready to take it seriously and partner with other like-minded screenwriters as we journey together, helping one another write 3 screenplays a year with twice-a-month calls and a community that will help hold you accountable and give you feedback on your work, click that link, check that out. But if you think I'm the trickster or the shapeshifter and I'm blowing smoke your way and feeding you a bunch of malarkey along the way, then hit the thumbs down button and just stop watching. I mean, if you're finding value though, hit the like button. Subscribe. If you think what I'm doing is valuable and you want to help me keep doing it, consider becoming a patron, supporting me on Patreon. But whoever I am to you dictates how you interact with me. So utilizing character archetypes isn't cheating. Archetypes are another tool in the toolbox you can use to help you create better characters faster and characters your audience is going to more easily connect with and understand. Now, what are the archetypes and where do they come from? Primarily, our understanding of archetypes come from 2 primary sources, Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. At least these are the 2 most prominent people who've explained archetypes in simple ways. There are others. I'm not going to dive into all others. There's this thing called the internet if you want to do some more research. Let's start with Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a psychologist, and he used the concept of archetypes as a basis for his theories about the human psyche. He was trying to understand why people did what they did, and what he found was that there were 12 primary archetypes among all the people he studied. His model has 12 archetypes. Joseph Campbell author of The Hero with 1,000 Faces, which you should read if you haven't, because everyone who works in Hollywood is at minimum familiar with it if they don't have it on their bookshelf. Joseph Campbell studied mythologies around the world and found specific patterns in those stories. As a result, he identified 8 archetypes that he found over and over and over again in those stories. And the pattern he identified is what is referred to as the hero's journey. In their lists, there is some overlap, and there are some gray areas. There's some that kind of merge with this one, so they're not super clean lines, and that's okay. But let me be clear. If you're wanting to use archetypes to help you create characters, and they can be extremely helpful, I do use them. It is best if you choose one list to follow. So follow Jung's, follow Campbell's, or follow somebody else's, because of how they break down and separate the different archetypes. I mean, if you just start mixing and matching between Jung and Campbell and the others out there, that's not going to be helpful. Your characters aren't going to be as distinctive. Okay, so if you're wanting to use it to help make your characters distinctive, to have them all kind of fit and just to kind of do it pretty quickly, you want to just kind of track with one person. In the description notes below, so if you look in the description notes below, I've put a couple of links to some other web pages that do give some simple, quick, and easy to understand breakdowns of archetypes for both Jung and Campbell. And you can, of course, do your own online searches if you want to explore more. So there's a couple links below in the notes section. Because it would be boring, though, for me to just go through all the archetypes and just like list them and go through them, that's going to be boring, explain all the nuances. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give a quick overview and a few examples along the way to help you understand what I'm talking about. So let's start with the 12 Jungian archetypes. So from Carl Jung, his 12 archetypes are caregiver, ruler, creator, artist, innocent, sage, explorer, outlaw, magician, hero, lover, jester, and the everyman. Now, what you're going to notice on this graph is each of these are grouped by what Connor Neal calls the 4 cardinal orientations. Connor Neal's the one who came up with this graphic. First is order, and order provides structure to the world. So these 3 archetypes are driven to help others in some way because they're wanting to provide structure to the world. The caregiver does it by caring and serving other people. The ruler is going to do it by ruling and controlling. The creator is going to do it by innovating and creating. Now, the next cardinal orientation group is freedom, or yearning for paradise. So these 3 archetypes are driven to seek some kind of utopia, primarily for themselves, but sometimes for other people. So first you have the innocent. And so they're trying to find utopia by finding or establishing safety. They just want things to be safe. The sage, by seeking understanding and knowledge. The explorer, by pursuing freedom, usually freedom from oppression. The next grouping is under ego, and these archetypes are striving to leave a mark on the world, one that they feel that they are uniquely qualified to leave. The outlaw, by liberating themselves and others from whatever is restraining them. So the outlaw is going to be trying to liberate other people. We're just going to break all the rules. The magician is going to try to do it by using power, either magical power or financial power or some other way to wield and exert power to create change in their world. The hero is going to do it by mastering a skill or a trait to conquer an opposing force and change the course of the world, or at least their small corner of it. Now, the last grouping is social, and these archetypes are longing to connect with others. So you have the lover, so they're trying to connect through intimacy and vulnerability. The jester is trying to connect through laughter and fun and joy. And the everyman through belonging and community building. Now, again, archetypes are characters and character traits that we all inherently understand. So let's take a real life example for a moment. Elon Musk. Now, what archetype is Elon Musk? I mean, looking at these 12, he's a bit of creator, a bit of explorer, and a bit of outlaw. So all of them are tied to soul, which are types of people who have a strong mission and are connected to something outside of themselves. And yes, Musk is a creator and an innovator, And yes, he's a bit of an outlaw because he chooses to do things his own way, sometimes thumbing his nose at others and the establishment. But ultimately, he's an explorer. He is constantly looking for avenues of freedom for others and freedom from oppressive structures. Now, I don't care how you feel about Elon Musk. That's not the point here. But if we were making a movie about him, he is the explorer archetype. And we would then focus on populating our story with people who fit other archetypes, because that will pull out the greatest conflict. And we like conflict in our stories. And for our chief protagonist, it'd probably be someone who is a ruler or a magician, because those two are going to give us the greatest interpersonal conflict with an explorer. And that's really what you're looking to do. Pit different archetypes against each other who are going to cause the most conflict and the most difficult time for one another. So you don't have to use only one archetype for one character, okay? We mentioned Elon Musk is kind of three. Just realize that each character is primarily one archetype, even though they can have traits from some of the others. Now let's shift gears and look quickly at Campbell's archetypes. Campbell identified 8 primary archetypes. First is the hero. Now for Campbell, this is the main character. They're always the hero, so whoever the main character is in a Campbell story, a hero's journey story, main character, always the hero. The mentor is the teacher of the hero, and they do play a significant role in the story. An ally is someone who helps the hero on their way to their goal. They're there. They're always there to help. They're always listening. They're always there to help. What do you need?
Okay, so what do you need besides a miracle?
Guns. Lots of guns.
The herald is the one who invites the hero on the adventure. I mean, basically, this is the person involved in the inciting incident where the hero's status quo life is broken. And usually the herald continues to play a role in the story. Next, we have the trickster. And the trickster does a couple of things. I mean, they provide some comedy along the way, but their comedy is also used to point out some of the themes and the important questions along the way.
That makes you wonder about a lot of things. You take chicken, for example. Maybe they couldn't figure out what to make chicken taste like, which is why chicken tastes like everything.
And we have a shapeshifter.
Want a drink?
I mean, this character is at times an ally and at times a betrayer. The hero has a hard time figuring out if they can trust this person or not. And there's a guardian. The guardian is a gatekeeper, preventing the hero from progressing on their journey. I mean, sometimes they try to outright kill the hero. At other times, though, they're just creating a gate or a threshold that is nearly impassable. And then finally, the shadow.
They're not out yet.
The shadow is the antagonist or the main opposition to the hero. The shadow will stop at nothing to defeat the hero, and their presence is constantly looming over everything. Now also keep in mind that George Lucas, when he created Star Wars, was closely following Campbell's The Hero's Journey, of which each of these archetypes play a part. So if you want some practice, think about the original trilogy of Star Wars and see if you can figure out which characters go where, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. What using archetypes can do, if you want to create some better characters a little more easily, is they help you ensure that your characters are different from one another, that your characters each have some clear motivations for why they're doing what they're doing, that your characters have differing goals from one another, sometimes in opposition to one another, and your characters have unique and distinct roles within the story. Plus, they help your audience more easily connect with and understand your characters. And again, you don't want to just look at an archetype and use it wholesale. You use it where you start, not the end. So you got to modify, you got to tweak it, and it should fit your needs and the story. So keeping the bulk of the archetypal traits will help an audience more quickly connect and relate to the characters and ultimately your story, but you do want to give something a little different because then it makes your characters feel unique and new and fresh. Now, I hope you will consider using archetypes when creating characters, especially if you feel like you're having difficulty creating unique and distinctive characters in your own stories. Archetypes are a great way to help you create better characters. And ultimately, I simply want to help you become a better writer and storyteller. And if you found any value and you haven't already, Please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all of that. I really do appreciate it. And be sure to check out links below, especially if you want more stuff like this, because you will find it in the Screenplay Navigator. And the link below gives you more information and walks you through how to set up a free call with me to see if it's a good fit for you. And when you go to tell a story, no matter how many archetypes you use in your story, be sure you tell a story that matters. See you later.